what's up you guys? I know it's been a while. I have not made a video in quite some time. I hope you guys do not take fault with me about that. I just honestly needed a break, but I am back and I do have plans on making videos more consistently. So I hope you guys are still interested in my channel and I hope you guys are gonna be down for the ride. One thing I like to make videos about are things that I had a problem finding videos and resources on through different journeys that I've had throughout life. So one thing that I found to be a gap is resources around how to make sure that you are successful after living internationally and moving back home to your home country. And it's so surprising because you would think people would be talking about this because living internationally, taking a gap year, all of that are things that are growing in number. More and more people are doing these things because our societies are becoming more globalized, because it's so much easier to just buy $1,000 plane ticket to the other side of the world. Our parents were not able to just freely do this kind of thing. So it's just, you know, it's something that's super cool, but at the same time, we want to have our cake and we want to eat it too. So although you may want to do all these fun, adventurous things and explore, work, teach in other countries, you want to make sure when you get back to your home country, you're going to actually have a way to make a living and be able to spin and talk about your experiences internationally in a way that can guarantee that you get the jobs of your dreams. So if you are interested in learning more about this topic, please stay tuned. So a little bit of background on me for anyone who does not know. I am from the United States. I'm from the Midwest and I went to grad school in Chicago. So I spent some time in Chicago during my grad school years, but instead of jumping right into my career after grad school, I decided that I wanted to take a break. I wanted to take a journey and teach English in Asia for a few years. So I did that. I had a great time. But I was pretty nervous to come back to the US because I didn't know what was in store for me. I had been out of my field for 2 years. I was pretty lost and I wanted to make sure that I was ready to talk to employers and recruiters about my experiences so that I can actually make a living and feed myself once I got back to my country. One thing that I feel really was in my advantage was the time I spent when I was teaching in Asia, focusing on activities that were tied into what my field is in or what I wanted to do once I got back to the US, which was social work. One way I was able to do that is by connecting with a professor who studied social work in South Korea. Before I moved to South Korea, I was talking to my professors about wanting to go to South Korea and what I was interested in doing. And one of my professors said that she had a colleague, which was another professor at a university in South Korea. I asked my professor if I could actually get that contact information of the instructor in South Korea so that I could connect with her, potentially do some research with her, and make sure that I was keeping my skills sharp in social work even though I was teaching English abroad. And luckily I was able to get connected with that professor, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do research, which if you can do research in your field while you're working internationally or living internationally, that's great. I wasn't able to score that, but I was able to meet several times with this professor and have very interesting conversations with her, very informative conversations with her, comparing the field of social work in Korea with the field of social work in the US. So these are conversations that I can bring back to the US with me and have with employers as a way to showcase the interesting skills that I was able to pick up on my time, living in South Korea. So that's one piece of advice, very practical. Just see if there's any type of way you can spend your time outside of whatever you're doing. Like for example, if you're an au pair in a cool country, if you're, doing a work study type of situation in another country, try to make sure that outside of what you're doing on a regular basis or full time is spent doing activities that is related to your field of choice. And be creative about this. Really spend some time to think about how you can stay connected with your field while you're living in a different country, whether it's research with another professor, whether it's volunteering to teach a class in English, but with a focus on whatever your field of study is. You can ask to teach math in English, or another opportunity would be to volunteer at a nonprofit or an organization that specializes in whatever you have an interest in or what your background is in. So I actually did this when I lived in South Korea. So I volunteered my time, I would say every week or twice a month, to helping youth and kids at a homeless shelter. Doing so, I was able to get that experience that I wanted with people who were in vulnerable situations, which is very tied to social work. And I was also able to learn about a nonprofit organization in South Korea. So that's a great experience that I'm always going to have and be able to talk about. I even have it on my resume. So how cool is that to be able to, showcase that on your resume? Is really going to make you stand out from the crowd. And I think it's really important to write down all of the skills you were able to pick up, whether it's soft skills or more practical skills, and practice with yourself, talking to your friends, your family, giving your pitch on how this experience has helped to shape you and how these skills have helped to shape you and push you in the direction to be a better person in whatever, field or area of interest you are hoping to get into once you get home. So for me, for example, I knew when I got home I wanted to do some type of program development work, program coordinating, that kind of thing, project management. Those are all different job titles and areas that people with a social work background could focus in. So I knew that that was most likely going to be the direction that I would end up in. And that actually was the direction that I ended up moving in when I came back. I thought about what I was doing in South Korea, which was teaching English full time. And I looked at how, different activities I was doing or skills I was picking up on connected with the skills I would need for those future jobs in my field, and do some research on what the buzzwords are, what the terminology is in your field of interest, so that you can properly use that language to explain what you were doing when you were living in another country. So I sat down and I thought about the fact that teaching English involves a lot of project management, a lot of program coordinating. I ran an after-school program, so I, wrote down what skills and what knowledge I picked up on by coordinating all of those after-school programs and managing people. That's another skill that I was able to hone in on when I was teaching in South Korea. So now on interviews, I make sure that I talk about that. So yeah, I actually sat down and I thought about all of these things and tried to make that connection to the area of interest that I was going to focus on once I got back to the US. And I used all of that language to craft a narrative or a pitch that I would provide for future employers. Also, one thing to really keep in mind is that in the US right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hot topic. A lot of companies are focusing in on this, honing in on this, because they're starting to understand the importance of having diverse thought and diverse ideas in the workplace. That really is going to help a company to thrive and to reach various populations, and it's helping them to sell products to people from a diverse background. So that's going to be a win for you. So that's something I would encourage you to talk about in future interviews as well. How has your experience helped you to be a professional who has that diversity, equity, and inclusion lens? Because a lot of companies want someone who can bring that to the forefront. I remember when I first started my job, the first week, my team had a lunch for me as a welcome, a way I can meet my new colleagues. And my director, he asked me to share my experiences living in South Korea with my colleagues at the table. And I could tell he was proud, he was proud to let the people around the table know that he had hired someone who had that type of background and experiences that hopefully and ideally I could bring into the workforce and help to push our culture forward. So that's really what a lot of executives and employers are looking for. We know that the population in the United States and all across the country is changing rapidly. Minorities are actually going to become the majority in the next several years. So companies really do want someone who can help to propel the culture forward and be more open to accepting people from different backgrounds. And also, when you're on your interview and preparing for your future career, once you get back to the States, think about and make sure you talk about how living abroad helped you to be a more open-minded, creative, and flexible person. Mention all of the struggles and cultural barriers you had to overcome when you were in a different country, and explain that, and explain your challenges with working with people who were different from you and who had a different background and culture than you, and let them know that you were able to overcome and get through those difficult experiences, and that experiences at work that you may go through or face in your home country is going to be pretty simple to handle, because you've already had the opportunity and the challenge of overcoming, a situation in the workplace that was much larger and, more difficult. And it also helps you to build on your speaking skills, because you're having to have conversations and get through complex issues that maybe you've never faced before. That's definitely gonna help to improve your conversation skills, your speaking skills, and your conflict resolution skills as well. And one more tip that may not necessarily be for preparing you for an interview, but just general, I think that living abroad and spending time internationally is good for you career-wise, because it really does make you more open to going wherever you need to go in order to get those opportunities related to your field that you need. There's a lot of people who are living in a city or living in the town where they grew up because they don't want to leave family and friends, even though they know that they could do so much better in their career and have so many more opportunities if they would just step outside of what they're used to and live in a different city. You are not going to have that problem as someone who's spent time living abroad or internationally, because you've already had that experience where you had to move somewhere different, create a new community for yourself, meet new people from scratch. So you're not going to have that fear of doing that again once you get to the US. So really, the world is going to be your oyster when you come back to your home country, because anything is fair game. You can just, pick up and move to any part of your country with no problems, because you were able to live in a whole different part of the world on the whole other side of the globe. So moving across states is going to be nothing for you. So you're going to be able to come back here, go to the job board, see all those opportunities, and whether it's somewhere that you grew up or where you're comfortable with or not, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be open-minded and you're going to seek out whatever's the best fit for you no matter where it is. And that's really what happened with me. Right now I live in Detroit. I didn't grow up in Detroit. I grew up in a whole different state than where Detroit is located. But I knew that if I was able to live in South Korea, another place that I had no understanding about, then, moving to another city in my own country would be no problem at all. So it was, of course it was challenging at times, and I'm still learning a lot and all that, but compared to living in a different country, it's not nearly as stressful. So to tee this video up, I would just say that if you are thinking about spending some time internationally, living, working, going to school, whatever, definitely do it. It's gonna make you a more competitive candidate in the future, as long as you are able to tell your story in a compelling way that will showcase the skills that you were able to learn. And in order to do so, I would tell you guys that it's very important to just sit down, think about it, and write things down and practice pitching about the skills and the experiences that you have gained. One of the most important points that I mentioned was making sure that you are staying connected to and tied to the skills that you need for your field in some type of way when you are living internationally, whether it's through volunteerism or seeking out another creative way to stay relevant in your field. All right, I hope this video was inspiring to someone, and I hope this video helped someone who may have been a little bit nervous about the possibility of living internationally because they didn't want to be too disconnected from their field. But yeah, If you guys have any more video topics that you would like me to touch on, please put them in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye-bye.